I had always believed that love meant sacrifice. When my wife's brother announced his wedding, I didn't hesitate. I quietly transferred a substantial sum, covering almost everything: venue, catering, the music, even the expensive champagne. I told myself it was worth it to see my wife's family happy, to see smiles on everyone's faces, to do what a husband should do. The wedding day arrived, and the hall shimmered with golden lights and crystal chandeliers. I watched from my seat as the couple exchanged vows, my heart swelling with a pride that was quickly tinged with something I didn't recognize. My wife sat beside me, her hand barely grazing mine, her eyes flicking over me now and then with peculiar, almost mischievous glint. I ignored it. Then came the speeches. Friend and relative stood up, sharing stories and jokes. Some made me laugh, some made me cringe. And then my wife's moment arrived. She stood, raised her glass, and began recounting funny memories of my life. At first, it was subtle, little jabs that seemed harmless, but the tone quickly darkened. She described moments I thought were private, embarrassing incidents that painted me as foolish, unlucky, perhaps even pathetic. Her laughter rang out across the room, and then came the cruelest part. She deliberately exaggerated, turned me into a spectacle in front of 200 guests. I felt my stomach knot. Heat rose to my face, but I smiled. I smiled as she mocked me, because I realized something. Any other reaction, anger, shame, pleading, would have only given her more power. I clutched my glass like it was a shield and smiled to the ridicule, my mind a whirlwind. But then, something unexpected happened. As her laughter echoed, the bride's expression shifted. Her rich, perfectly manicured hands froze around her champagne flute, and her eyes narrowed when she heard my name mentioned. There was a pause, almost imperceptible, but long enough to fill the room with tension. And then, in a voice so cold and deliberate it cut through the laughter, she asked for the microphone. The room fell silent. Every head turned toward her. My heart thumped loudly in my chest as she held the microphone like a weapon. "I think we need to clarify something," she said, her voice low but commanding, "about who really paid for this wedding." All eyes were now on me. The subtle whispering began. My wife's cheeks flushed a faint pink, her smile faltering. The bride's lips curved into a small, satisfied smirk as she continued. "It seems there's been a misunderstanding. While many assumed this was a family celebration funded by tradition or generosity from the groom's side, in reality," she paused for effect, letting the silence stretch, making every guest lean in, "it was all paid for by him." She pointed directly at me. The microphone amplified my name, each syllable hitting the air like a hammer. My wife's mouth opened and closed, no words emerging. Murmurs rippled through the hall. The laughter that had once been aimed at me died in the air like a snuff candle. I kept my smile, but now it was a different kind, one of quiet triumph. The bride turned to my wife. "And I think everyone should know," she said, her tone razor-sharp, "that mocking someone in front of hundreds of guests, especially someone who just selflessly supported your family, is unforgivable." The room shifted. I felt the weight of all those eyes on us, on her, and then, unexpectedly, relief. Relief that the truth was out. Relief that my dignity had been silently rescued by someone who saw the whole picture. My wife's smugness evaporated. She looked small suddenly, like a child caught in a lie she thought no one would notice. I didn't need to say a word. The microphone, the bride, the truth, they did it all for me. I simply sat back, sipping my drink, letting the warmth of vindication fill me. I had smiled through humiliation, and now, quietly, the balance had shifted. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. The guests avoided direct confrontation. Whispers danced behind closed hands, and my wife avoided my gaze. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The lesson had been delivered, sharply and publicly. Later, when the hall was almost empty, I found the bride and thanked her. She only shrugged as if it was nothing, but I knew it wasn't. She had reminded everyone, including my wife, of one simple truth: respect is earned and kindness is never to be mocked. That night, as I drove home alone, the city lights streaking past my window, I realized something deeper. I had endured humiliation without breaking. I had smiled when I wanted to scream. And in the end, the world had acknowledged my quiet strength. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need an apology. I had something far stronger: self-respect, and the knowledge that those who attempt to belittle you are revealed not by your reaction, but by the truth. The wedding had been lavish, the humiliation sharp, but in the end, justice arrived in the most unexpected of forms. And I had simply smiled and waited